Barco Escape is a panoramic experience, theatrical experience, where you have a...
When Wesley Snipes first put on the leather coat as Blade, he wasn't just playing a character, he was building an empire. But by the time the third movie rolled around, a new face entered the frame, Ryan Reynolds. What was supposed to be a passing of the torch quickly turned into a personal nightmare that Snipes felt derailed his career and his most iconic role. The friction between them wasn't just creative differences, it was a deep clash that turned the set into a Cold War. Snipes reportedly saw Reynolds as a distraction who turned a serious action franchise into a comedy show, and the resentment that grew from that changed everything. To this day, the stories from that set remain some of the wildest in Hollywood history. So what exactly happened on that set, and why exactly does the name Ryan Reynolds leave a bitter taste in Wesley Snipes' mouth? Join us as we get into all the details. How Martin Scorsese discovered Wesley Snipes. Before Wesley Snipes became the baddest vampire hunter to ever walk the earth, he was just a kid from the Bronx with a dream and a serious set of skills. Born in Orlando, Florida in 1962, Wesley wasn't just looking for fame, he was looking for a stage. He eventually found his way into New York's prestigious High School of Performing Arts, the kind of place where legends are made. Even though he had to head back to Florida before he could toss his cap at graduation, the city had already left its mark on him. He finished up at Jones High School in Orlando, but like a moth to a flame, he headed straight back to New York to earn his degree in fine arts from SUNY Purchase. By the age of 23, the world was starting to take notice. An agent spotted him during a competition, and before he knew it, he was sharing the screen with Goldie Hawn in the 1986 comedy Wildcats. It wasn't long before he was moving from the football field to the gritty streets of Miami Vice, playing a drug-dealing pimp who showed a glimpse of the intensity he'd eventually be known for. But if you really want to know when Wesley Snipes became a household name, you have to look at 1987. That's the year Martin Scorsese put him in a leather jacket as Michael Jackson's rival in the iconic Bad music video. He didn't just play a tough guy, he stood toe-to-toe with the king of pop and held his own. Funny enough, while he was making waves, he was also narrowly missing out on roles that would have changed television history. He was actually considered for the part of Geordi LaForge in Star Trek: The Next Generation, a role that eventually went to LeVar Burton. He also fought tooth and nail to play Leroy Green in the cult classic The Last Dragon, but that dream didn't pan out either. However, those no's were just clearing the path for a massive yes from director Spike Lee. Spike saw that Bad video and knew Wesley was something special. While Wesley actually turned down a small role in Do the Right Thing, it was for a good reason. He landed the lead role of Willie Mays Hayes in the 1989 hit Major League. From there, the momentum was unstoppable. He teamed back up with Spike Lee for Mo Better Blues and the controversial drama Jungle Fever, proving he could be a romantic lead just as easily as a jazz musician. By 1991, the Washington Post was calling him the most celebrated actor of the season. He was everywhere, but it was his turn as the cold-blooded drug lord Nino Brown in New Jack City that truly solidified his status as a cinematic powerhouse. The role was written specifically for him, and Wesley delivered a performance so chilling and charismatic that people are still quoting it decades later. The 90s were essentially a victory lap for Wesley. He was winning awards left and right, even picking up the Best Actor Volpe Cup in Venice for One Night Stand. But everything changed in 1998. That was the year he stepped into the trench coat of a Marvel Comics character named Blade. At the time, superhero movies weren't the billion-dollar juggernauts they are today. Wesley took a gamble on a half-vampire, half-human hybrid, and it paid off in a way no one saw coming. Blade raked in over $150 million worldwide, single-handedly proving that Marvel movies could be dark, gritty, and most importantly, profitable. With a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame and an honorary doctorate in his pocket, Wesley was on top of the world. He returned for Blade 2, which was a massive hit, but the wheels started to come off by the time they hit Blade, Trinity, in 2004. This wasn't just a movie production, it was a legal and personal battlefield. Wesley ended up suing the studio and the director, claiming he wasn't paid his full salary and that he was being pushed out of his own franchise to make room for newcomers like Ryan Reynolds and Jessica Biel. The suit was eventually settled in secret, but the damage was done. The passing of the torch felt more like a shove, and the relationship between Wesley and the studio soured. Life started to throw some heavy punches outside of the film set, too. Just as he was supposed to lead Spike Lee's war film Miracle at St. Anna, Wesley ran into major trouble with the IRS. His tax problems became front-page news, forcing him to drop out of big projects. He even had to turn down a role in The Expendables because he wasn't allowed to leave the country without a judge saying so. It was a dark period for the star, where his legal battles seemed to overshadow his legendary talent. But you can't keep a daywalker down forever. After years of direct-to-video releases and legal drama, Wesley made a theatrical comeback in 2009 with Brooklyn's Finest. It was a reminder that the man still had the chops. He eventually made it into the Expendables franchise for the third installment, and his hilarious scene-stealing performance in Dolomite. Is My Name proved he hadn't lost his comedic timing or his charm. Critics loved it, and the fans were just happy to see him back where he belonged. Then, in 2024, the unthinkable happened. After 20 years of rumors, resentment, and what-ifs, Wesley Snipes put the sunglasses back on. In a move that shocked the world, he returned as Blade in Deadpool and Wolverine. It wasn't just a cameo, it was a full-circle moment that officially brought his version of the character into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And the kicker? He had to do it alongside Ryan Reynolds, the very man who had been at the center of the Blade, Trinity's storm all those years ago. It seems that in Hollywood, even the deepest grudges can be buried if the timing is right and the story is big enough. Wesley Snipes didn't just return to the screen. He reminded everyone that before there was an Avengers or a multiverse, there was only one man who could walk in the sun. The movie that saved Marvel, The Secret History of Blade, 1998. Before the Marvel Cinematic Universe was a multi-billion-dollar machine, and long before the Avengers ever assembled, there was a single movie that changed the game forever. In 1998, Blade didn't just hit theaters, it slashed through them, proving that a dark, R-rated superhero flick could actually work. But the road to getting Wesley Snipes into that iconic leather coat was a wild, messy journey that almost looked a lot different. Believe it or not, early versions of the project weren't even set in the city. At one point, the studio was looking at a Western set in Mexico starring Richard Roundtree. Even the legendary rapper LL Cool J was in the mix to play the lead back in the early 90s. The project eventually landed at New Line Cinema, but even then, the studio didn't quite know what they had. They originally wanted to turn Blade into a spoof, a comedy that didn't take itself seriously at all. They even asked if the character could be white. Thankfully, writer David S. Goyer stepped in and put his foot down. He wanted to ground the story in reality, treating vampirism like a biological disease rather than some romantic fairy tale. While big names like David Fincher were once attached to direct, he eventually moved on, likely to make Fight Club, leaving the door open for Stephen Norrington to step in. And when it came to casting the Daywalker himself, 3 names were on the table: Denzel Washington, Lawrence Fishburne, and Wesley Snipes. But for Goyer, there was never a real contest. Wesley was the perfect choice. Once the script hit Wesley's desk, no other actor was even considered. After a failed attempt to get a Black Panther movie off the ground, Snipes signed on, not just as the star, but as a producer who wanted to inject the story with the weight of a Shakespearean tragedy. Even with the perfect lead, the film almost crashed and burned before it ever reached the finish line. The first cut was a staggering 140 minutes long, and when they showed it to test audiences, it was a total disaster. People hated it. The studio panicked, delaying the release for over 6 months to conduct heavy reshoots and edits. The biggest change? The final sword fight between Blade and Deacon Frost. In the original version, Frost didn't keep his human shape. He turned into a giant, swirling mass of blood. The special effects looked so bad, they had to scrap it entirely, giving us the high-octane duel we know today instead. The behind-the-scenes drama didn't stop at the editing bay. There were even some legendary cameos that almost happened. Stan Lee actually filmed a scene as a cop who finds a burning body in a club, but he ended up on the cutting room floor. And get this, Michael Jackson was supposed to show up in the sequel. The King of Pop had agreed to play a vampire pimp in Blade 2, but a scheduling conflict forced him to drop out. Imagine how different that movie would have felt with MJ lurking in the shadows of the House of Pain. Despite the chaos and the creative battles, Blade became a massive commercial success, raking in $131 million on a modest $45 million budget. It wasn't just a win for the studio, it was a signature moment for Wesley Snipes. He didn't just play a character, he birthed a franchise that paved the way for everything we see in theaters today. By the time Blade 2 and Blade Trinity rolled around, the world knew that as long as Wesley had his sword, the vampires didn't stand a chance. Beyond the leather, the turbulent private life of Wesley Snipes. When it comes to Wesley Snipes, the action on the screen was often matched by the drama in his personal life. Behind the leather trench coat and the martial arts moves, Wesley was navigating a series of high-profile romances that kept the tabloids buzzing for decades. It all started back in 1985 when he tied the knot with April Dubois. They were together for 5 years and had a son, Jelani, but the marriage was reportedly a roller coaster. By 1990, the fire had burned out and they headed for a divorce, marking the end of Wesley's first major chapter in the spotlight. But a star as big as Wesley wasn't going to stay single for long, and his next move put him right in the middle of one of the most talked about couplings of the 90s. In 1991, he started dating Halle Berry, and for 4 years, they were the it couple of Hollywood. They even welcomed a son together named Akhenaten. However, being in the public eye took its toll, and what started as a glamorous romance ended in a very public and very messy breakup by 1995. It was the kind of split that fed the gossip columns for months, leaving fans wondering if Wesley would ever find a relationship that could go the distance. After the storm with Halle, Wesley tried a different approach. He moved on to a relationship with supermodel Nikki Taylor in 1996. This time around, he kept things a bit more low-key, steering clear of the constant media circus that had followed his previous flame. They stayed together for about 2 years, but even the quieter life couldn't make it stick, and they eventually went their separate ways in 1998. It seemed like the legendary actor was still searching for that missing piece of the puzzle. That search finally seemed to end in 2003 when Wesley married Nakyung Nikki Park. For a long time, it looked like he had finally found his anchor. Over the next 17 years, the couple built a massive family, welcoming 4 children, Isat, Alafia, Alamayu, and a 4th child who filled their home with life. For nearly 2 decades, this was the stable foundation Wesley needed while he dealt with the highs and lows of his career. But even the strongest foundations can crack, and in 2020, the news broke that Wesley and Nikki were calling it quits. Despite the divorces and the high-profile breakups, there is one role Wesley takes more seriously than any blockbuster hero: being a father. With 5 children across his 3 major relationships, he has spent his life trying to be the devoted dad they need. Through the legal battles, the career shifts, and the relationship drama, his kids have been his true North Star. They've been his strength when things got tough, proving that while his romantic life might have been a Cold War at times, his bond with his children is the one thing that remains unbreakable. But as Wesley was settling into this new chapter of domestic life, a different kind of war was brewing on the set of his most famous franchise, a conflict that would eventually become the stuff of Hollywood legend. The garbage shirt scandal: why Wesley Snipes walked off Blade. Trinity few film sets in Hollywood history are as infamously messy as the one for Blade. Trinity, the 2004 flick that was supposed to be the crowning jewel of the trilogy. Instead, it became a psychological battlefield between the star, Wesley Snipes, and the director, David S. Goyer. These two didn't just have creative differences, they were in a state of Cold War. According to the stories coming off that set, Snipes was so fed up with the production that he stopped talking to Goyer altogether, choosing instead to communicate only through yellow Post-it notes. And the kicker? He signed every single one of them from Blade. The friction wasn't just about ego, it was deeply personal for Wesley. He was reportedly furious over what he saw as lackluster black representation in the film. Things supposedly reached a breaking point during a scene involving a black actor who was wearing a shirt with the word "garbage" printed on it. According to Patton Oswalt, who played the tech whiz Hedges, Wesley came onto the set, which he only did for close-ups, and lost his mind. He allegedly looked at Goyer and screamed about there being only one other black man in the movie and making him wear a garbage shirt. Things got so heated that Snipes allegedly tried to saint N.G.L. Goyer right then and there. After that explosive encounter, the vibe on set turned ice cold. Goyer was so worried about things getting physical again that he reportedly went out to a local bar and hired a group of bikers to act as his personal security. This led to a tense sit-down between the star and the director that ended with Snipes retreating to his trailer for most of the shoot. While the rest of the cast, including a young Ryan Reynolds and Jessica Biel, was out there trying to make a movie, Wesley was reportedly staying inside, ing weed and only emerging when the cameras were ready for his face. This bizarre dynamic forced the rest of the cast to get creative. Since Wesley was barely there, Ryan Reynolds ended up ad-libbing a massive chunk of his lines, often performing to a stand-in or a version of Snipes who refused to react. In a weird way, this was the unofficial birth of the Deadpool persona we all love today. Reynolds, Biel, and Oswalt leaned into the awkwardness, making up the worst jokes they could think of just to see if they could get a rise out of Wesley. All they'd get in return was a stoic or a blank stare, which the editors then had to piece together into a coherent movie. But the drama didn't end when the cameras stopped rolling. Just months after the movie hit theaters, Wesley slapped New Line Cinema and David Goyer with a massive $5 million lawsuit. He claimed the studio had breached his contract by cutting him out of casting and screenplay decisions. More importantly, he alleged he was harassed and isolated because of his race, claiming the production intentionally pushed aside diversity in favor of an all-white supporting cast. Wesley felt the whole movie was being hijacked to set up spin-offs for Reynolds and Biel, leaving the character of Blade as an afterthought in his own franchise. While that lawsuit eventually faded away, Wesley's troubles with the law were only beginning. Between high-speed chases and misdemeanor charges, he eventually faced a 3-year prison sentence for tax issues, which took him out of the game until 2013. During that time, the stories from the Blade Trinity set continued to grow. Journalists who visited the set described a scathing atmosphere where Snipes refused to do interviews and stayed locked in character. Co-stars like Parker Posey just wanted to have big-budget fun, but Wesley wasn't having any of it. He was intense and methodical and completely over the whole experience. For David Goyer, the movie was a professional scar that never quite healed. Years later, he described the production as the most painful thing he'd ever been through, admitting he hadn't spoken to Wesley since the wrap. But if you ask Wesley today, he's surprisingly calm about the whole thing. He doesn't hold any grudges, chalking it up to the chaos of the industry and the pressure of building something from nothing. He even called the whole experience an anomaly. It's the ultimate Hollywood irony. A movie that was a total nightmare to make actually paved the way for the superhero gold rush we're living in now. Even though Blade Trinity is often seen as a mess, it has a weird cult following of fans who love the behind-the-scenes chaos as much as the action. While the chaotic production of Blade Trinity felt like a low point for Wesley's career, the reality was that his biggest battle wasn't happening on a movie set. It was happening on paper. The $23 million debt, how Wesley Snipes lost it all to the IRS. At his peak, Wesley Snipes wasn't just a movie star. He was a walking ATM. By the late 90s, he was pulling in a staggering $7 million to $13 million per movie, sitting comfortably at the top of the industry with both box office hits and serious acting chops. But as we look at his financial standing today, the math tells a much darker story. While some celebrity trackers list his assets in the millions, others point to a stunning reversal that suggests his net worth actually dipped to a jaw-dropping negative $9 million. The trouble started when Wesley stopped filing tax returns altogether for nearly a decade. On the advice of some tax protesters, he didn't just stop paying, he went on the offensive. He allegedly tried to claim over $12 million in fraudulent refunds using something called the 861 argument, a wild theory that basically says the government doesn't have the legal right to tax the domestic income of U.S. citizens. To double down, he even sent the IRS fictitious bills of exchange worth $14 million. When the government finally came knocking, Wesley's defense was even stranger, as he declared himself a non-resident alien despite being a U.S. citizen by birth. The legal hammer finally fell in 2008, While Wesley managed to beat the heavy felony conspiracy charges, he was found guilty on 3 misdemeanor counts of willfully failing to file his taxes. The judge didn't go easy on him, handing down the maximum sentence of 3 years in federal prison. Between 2010 and 2013, the man who once hunted vampires was living in a federal correctional institution, but the prison time was only half the battle. While he was behind bars, the interest, penalties, and back taxes didn't stop growing, leaving him with a mountain of debt that some reports say reached nearly $10 million, a figure that has loomed over his finances for years. His legal woes didn't stop at the border either. In 2005, he was investigated in South Africa after being caught with a counterfeit passport while trying to leave the airport in Johannesburg. Even though he had a real U.S. passport on him, the stunt got him classified as an undesirable person by South African immigration. It felt like the world was closing in on the action star, but you can't keep a legend like Wesley Snipes down for long. The moment he walked out of prison in 2013, he went right back to work, proving that his talent was the one thing the government couldn't take away. His comeback started with The Expendables 3, where he played a character named Dr. Death, who, in a cheeky nod to reality, was being broken out of a prison transport. From there, he reminded everyone of his incredible range in Dolomite Is My Name, earning rave reviews that proved he hadn't lost a step. By the time he suited up for his massive return in the Deadpool and Wolverine era, it was clear that the fans were ready to welcome him back to the empire he helped build. Wesley Snipes' story is a wild ride of massive highs and crushing lows, but through it all, he's proven that while you might lose the money, you never lose the hustle. From bitter rivals to my friend, the evolution of Snipes and Reynolds. The tension between Wesley Snipes and Ryan Reynolds on the set of Blade. Trinity wasn't just a simple case of 2 actors not getting along. It was a collision of 2 completely different worlds. To understand why Wesley Snipes supposedly hated Ryan Reynolds, you have to look at how Snipes viewed the character he had spent years building. By 2004, Wesley had turned Blade into a stoic, legendary icon of the Marvel world, and he took that responsibility seriously. The friction started because Wesley was deep in his method bag. He wasn't just playing Blade, he was Blade. He stayed in character 24/7, communicating with the director through post-it notes signed "From Blade" and spending most of his time isolated in his trailer. Ryan Reynolds, on the other hand, was the new kid on the block with a high-energy improvisational style that couldn't be more different. Reynolds was constantly cracking jokes and ad-libbing lines, which Snipes reportedly saw as a total disrespect to the gritty, dark tone of the franchise. To Snipes, it felt like Reynolds was turning his serious action empire into a dime store comedy show. The tension got so thick that it actually bled into the movie. There's a famous scene where Reynolds' character, Hannibal King, looks at Jessica Biel and asks, "He hates me, doesn't he?" Reynolds later admitted that in that moment, he wasn't even sure if the cameras were rolling. He was talking about his real-life relationship with Snipes. Every time Reynolds would try to get a reaction out of Wesley with a joke or a jab, he was met with a cold, terrifying stare that felt like it could turn him into pulp. For Snipes, Reynolds represented a shift in the franchise that he didn't sign up for, one where the spotlight was being shared with a talkative newcomer who seemed to be stealing his thunder. Things got so bad that they reached a point of pure absurdity. Rumors swirled about a physical altercation between Snipes and the director, and then there was the infamous CGI eyes incident. During one scene, Snipes reportedly refused to even open his eyes for the camera, forcing the production to digitally paint eyes onto his face in post-production. While Reynolds tried to stay professional, he was essentially carrying scenes by himself, while Snipes remained uncooperative. For Wesley, the resentment likely came from the feeling that the studio was pushing him out of his own house to make room for Reynolds' Deadpool-style humor. For years, this feud was the stuff of Hollywood legend, but the story finally got its happy ending in 2024. When Wesley Snipes made his shocking return as Blade in Deadpool and Wolverine, he didn't just come back for a paycheck, he came back to close the book on the drama. The movie even threw a meta wink at the fans when Blade tells Deadpool he doesn't like him, and Deadpool casually shoots back, "You never liked me." It was the ultimate inside joke for anyone who knew the history. By the time Ryan Reynolds walked out at Comic-Con and introduced Wesley as "my friend," it was clear the war was over. Whatever bitterness existed on that 2004 set has been buried, proving that even the most legendary Hollywood grudges can be settled with a little bit of time and a whole lot of box office magic. What Blade franchise is your favorite? Share your thoughts with us in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Also, click the next video shown on your screen. You will enjoy it.